Although I was born and brought up in India, I just heard about Swami, but I did not know him. The family did not follow him. And, I didn't know much about him until I came to Jamaica. I came to Jamaica in 1980. And in 82, at a social event, I met a doctor, a psychiatrist, Dr. Kamla. Dr. Kamla, she invited me to her house as she had regular satsangs on Thursday at her place. So out of curiosity, I didn't know Baba. Out of curiosity, I just went to attend one of the satsangs that she had held. And I was really kind of amazed to see how beautifully people who who were there sang bhajans. The Jamaicans, who I never expected would be so good at singing bhajans. They uplifted the entire environment. And among them was Winston Spalding, who was our former Minister of National Security. He and his wife, Carol Spalding, were there. And that is where I met them for the first time at Dr. Kamla's house. And she was a psychiatrist working at Bellevue Hospital. So my first visit, my first satsang in Kingston was amazing. I was really very happy that I went, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. The most memorable event in my life was that in the early 1990s, I went to Prashanthi for the first time. And at that time, I, of course, asked my mother to join me along. And my husband, he jumped up and he said, "No, you two ladies are not going alone. I'm going to go along with you." So he tagged along just to make sure that we were safe and comfortable. He didn't believe in Swami. He believes in God, but he didn't believe in gurus, and Swami was new to me. So it had not ingrained into him as to who he really was or is. So anyway, he came as, a security person for us. And we got into the express bus in Chennai at 7 p.m., which dropped us at the gate, Puttaparthi gate, Swami's place, Prashanthi Nilayam, at 7 a.m. So we got down and I held my mother and we said, "Okay, and let's go and see. We have to come back this evening," because I had left my little girls with my sister-in-law who already had her children to look after. So I promised her that I would come back that night. So anyway, so we rushed in, and at that time, somebody, mentioned to me that it is Swami's time now. He should be here in the next 5-10 minutes. So I rushed to go to the hall where he sits and gives his darshan. But the crowd was terrible. They didn't allow me to get into the hall. So I was so disappointed that I missed that darshan. So what I did was I just went straight to to the bathroom and I washed myself, cleaned, changed, had my breakfast. And then at 10 o'clock was the second darshan. And as we all know, the ladies are on one side and men on the other. So my husband had to leave us and he went around to the other section. I held my mother and I went to the hall for the second darshan. The crowd was immense. There was a lot of push and pull and the volunteers screaming. It was messy. But anyway, I just got a seat along with my mother on the floor, far away in a corner. And this time too, I didn't get a glimpse of Swami. So I was again disappointed and I said, oh my Lord, I have come all this way and I just can't have even a glimpse of him. Okay, after the session, everybody went back to rest. And at this time, I came out and I met my husband and he asked me, did you get to see Swami? I said, no, I did not. I was far away in a corner and people in front of me were tall and I couldn't see anyone. Couldn't see Swami. I was so disappointed. And there was just one last chance for me, the 4 o'clock darshan. He laughed at me and he said, oh, your man came and stood right in front of me and looked into my eyes. And he laughed and he said, I got the full darshan. I don't believe in him, but he came straight to me where I was standing, right in front of me. And he looked into my eyes and he laughed. So I was disappointed. And I said, look who he goes and gives darshan to, a person who doesn't even know him or believe in him. But I said, it's okay, never mind. So I went back and I took my mother to the place where they had a resting area, a shelter. I put her on the bed and I asked her to rest. But I was very restless. So I couldn't sit there with her. I just walked around and I found ladies sitting and packing vibhuti in packets. So I volunteered and I sat down with them and I started to pack vibhuti along with them. Suddenly at 3 o'clock, the gates opened and people started to rush and get inside. And, I was confused. My mother was far away resting. I ran. That was the fastest I could run, as much as I could run. I ran to this place and I woke up my mother and I told her, it's now the time, come. She couldn't walk. She's frail and she had cataract in her eyes. Couldn't see much, but I had to tell her, Mommy, you have to rush. You have to rush before they close the gate. We have to make it. So she walked along with me. And as soon as I entered the gate, the hall, they closed the door and said, that's it, no more. I was happy that I got in along with my mother. Now, the next step was they would ask all the ladies to sit in a row of 20. So they arranged us and they made us sit in rows. And I think we were somewhere around 25 or 26th row, we were sitting. It so happened that my mother was at the start of row 25. So in those days, what they did was a volunteer would come with a bag with tokens in it, numbered. And the first person of the row would be asked to pick a token. And whatever number it had, we would be asked to go and sit in the next hall where Swami gave his darshan. So anyway, when the turn came of my mother to pick up from the bag, she put her hand in and she took out 2 tokens. One was number 1 and the other one was number 17. So the people sitting in my row were so happy. They started to scream that we are going to be the first ones, number 1. But the lady was annoyed when she saw 2 tokens. So she asked my mother to drop both of them back into the bag. And she shuffled it again and she asked her to pick now. So she again put her hand inside and she took out number 1. That was amazing. So we got the opportunity of sitting in the first row right under his nose. And then again, I saw many ladies having an envelope in their hand. And this was my first trip to Puttaparthi, and I didn't understand, I didn't know what it was all about. So I asked the lady, one of the ladies up there, about the envelope. And she said that people write letters to Swami, conveying their messages, wishes, or seeking solution, and prayers and things of that sort. So I said, okay, so this is something nice. I should do it too. But unfortunately, I never had a paper at that moment. And I was sitting in the first row, Swami to come in the next 15 minutes. So what I did was, I didn't have my handbag either. So luckily, what happened was, I had chips in a brown paper bag. I took out all the chips from the brown paper bag, tore that brown paper bag, and I wrote whatever I had to for Swami. And I folded that, and I was holding that when Swami came. I was so doubtful whether he would pick my brown paper bag letter. You know, he passed by, he stood by me, he looked at me, he smiled, and he collected that paper from me. So, I was so thrilled. And my mother, who had cataract in her eyes, can't see much. It so happened that he was standing right in front of her, and she had the opportunity to, hold his feet as reverence and put it on her eyes as respect. So she did that, and she told me later that, I could see his feet. He has very small ones. And it was so clear to me, So this is the first instance, and I went back to my husband and I told him, hey, look, I got the best darshan. He was right in front of me. He picked up the brown paper bag from me. Subsequent to that, I had about 2 or 3 visits to Puttaparthi, and I did see Swami from far. Of course, I was a commoner. I never had any interviews with him. I never had dreams or anything. Simple, just an ordinary person, but an aspirant of Swami. So anytime I went to Puttaparthi, I saw him, my tears would roll down. I would get very emotional the minute I see him. And every time I visited Puttaparthi, I would say, this time I'm not going to shed tears. I'm going to control myself. But no, the minute I see him, tears roll down, So the second experience, I would say, is that but we in general, the Sai devotees in Kingston, everybody witnessed something that happens every year. When we have Akhand Bhajans, the 24-hour Akhand Bhajan, every year we try and be there for the 24 hours, and we get just a small break in between. And it so happens that every year between 1 and 2 p.m., we would suddenly have a burst of jasmine smell for about a minute or two. We don't have jasmine up here, but we would smell, one year we would smell jasmine, the next year we smelled vibhuti, and the other year rose, and then vibhuti again. So every year between 1 and 2:30, I would say, we felt him. We really felt him. And at one of the Akhand session, Lakshmi, who used to teach children, she used to be with us. And what happened is, at one point around 1:30, she screamed and she held me tight. At that time, most of them are lying down on the ground and taking some rest, sleep. It's just 3 or 4 of us who continue from 12 to 6, very few of us. So it is at that point, at 1:30, she held my hand and she was sitting beside me and singing, and she screamed. And I asked her what happened. She said, don't you see, Swami is here. He's sitting on that chair. And she couldn't stop. She cried, she screamed, she did everything possible. I never had the vision, but I felt him very strongly. So every Akhand Bhajan is so vibrating. And the garland that we put on the picture at 6 p.m., the next day at 6 p.m., that garland has increased 3 to 4 times in size every year. Swami to me is my guru, my guide. I see him as my guide, my guru. Anything, because there are certain things that you don't tell your parents, you don't tell your friend, but there's somebody who you think that you can talk to, and he listens no matter where he is, and he sends his message to you in some form or the other. So that is why he's my guide. So if I have anything to solve, if I'm depressed, if I'm angry, or if there's any kind of turmoil inside me, I sit and I talk to him. I talk to him, sometimes in tears, sometimes I scold him, you know. So
Yeah.
he's the only person who I can do. And the reason is he's not going to talk back to me, but he will definitely send his message through some means. So a guide, a guru is considered to be even more higher than God himself. They say, first comes guru in your life and then the rest. So he is supreme guru for me. I come from a family where not only knowing Swami, but even worshipping God was not done on a regular basis. There's a story behind it, the reason behind it, rather. I was just about 3 years old, and my brother, year and a half, my mother, 26, and my dad, 28, when I lost him, my father, who was 28, in a car accident. So my mother, she gave up worshiping totally. That kind of bitterness entered into her heart that she stopped praying. She had little children to bring up, and my mother was illiterate. Although my father was a big businessman, lived luxuriously, gave my mother everything. But the only thing that my mother could do and that she was taught was to sign in English, signature. Other than that, she didn't know anything. She didn't go to school because she was not sent to school. She was born in Pakistan before the partition of India. And in those days, girls were not sent to school for education. So she didn't have that academic education. So, anyway, so in her life, because she did not have that education, she went through a lot in terms of, property and business, money, and everything. She didn't know anything. She believed everybody, and only thing she could do was to sign. That is all she knew. Yes, so I was just saying that my mother was so bitter about it, so she never prayed. But she taught me just one thing, that every evening I must light diya by the altar and pray. And what was that prayer? I would recite my school prayers because that is all I knew. She never prayed. She never taught me nothing. She just said, light a lamp, just fold your hands and just recite your school prayers. And that's it. She was so bitter about it for a very long time. So it is Jamaica that opened my eyes. The transformation in me by joining these satsangs, conferences, study circles, and seva and other activities opened me up in terms of realizing the purpose of life. That is a transformation in me. I came empty, like nothing in my mind, but I got spiritual. That's the transformation in me. in today's world, especially the youngsters, you see, they like to live in big houses, big homes, big cars. I mean, nothing wrong in that. If you have it, sure, you can enjoy it. But there is a point in time where you need to seal it. That kind of greed, selfishness to acquire more and more is only leading to stress and leading people to activities that are not moral.